Tonight's headlines: Duterte approves additional pay for health frontliners. Palace denies lapses in typhoon response. House Speaker wants probe on Cagayan flooding. Coronavirus cases in the country now at 409,574. DepEd to replace typhoon-damaged learning modules. ASEAN leaders understood Duterte's skipping summit. PSEi extends losing streak. And BSP says remittances rebound in September. Good evening. Today is Monday, November 16, 2020. I am Elmer Navarro Manuel and this is Tribune News on Q. Here are the stories for this evening. President Rodrigo Duterte has green-lighted the additional pay for health workers at the helm of the coronavirus disease pandemic. In his administrative order, the President has authorized up to 3,000 pesos per month in tax-free active hazard duty pay to health workers whose services are essential to the COVID-19 fight and who physically report to the front lines and are inevitably exposed to health risk. This incentive will be prorated based on the number of days that a health worker physically reported for work in a month from September 15 to December 19. Duterte also approved Administrative Order 36, authorizing up to 5,000 pesos monthly special risk allowance for private and public health workers who directly cater to or are in contact with COVID-19 patients, which shall also be exempt from income tax. Both incentives will be sourced from the 13.5 billion peso appropriated under the Bayanihan to Recover as One Act for health-related initiatives against the pandemic. Despite the downward trend in the number of cases in more recent weeks, the Health Department said that it was not the time to be complacent. Malacanang on Monday stressed that there were no shortcomings in the government's response to Typhoon Ulysses, which left at least 69 dead and submerged a northern region under the worst flooding in more than 4 decades. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said that while the government prepared for Typhoon Ulysses' onslaught in Cagayan Valley, authorities did not expect the gravity of the amount of water that descended on the lowlands. He added that climate change, deforestation, illegal mining, and a choke point in the Cagayan River contributed to the flooding in the region. Malacanang is drafting an executive order to formalize the creation of a task force to provide a whole-of-government approach to disasters and recovery efforts, according to Roque. Executive Secretary Salvador Mediadela's office will lead the task force, according to Roque. Asked how the task force would be different from the Interagency National Risk Reduction and Management Council, Roque said Medialdea could decide on his own even without meeting other officials, especially if it meant saving lives. House Speaker Lord Alan Velasco on Monday disclosed that the House of Representatives will conduct an investigation into the cause of massive flooding that submerged in many areas in Cagayan and Isabela provinces during the onslaught of Typhoon Ulysses. The proposal to hold the investigation in aid of legislation is contained in House Resolution 1348 filed by Velasco, Majority Leader Martin Romualdez, and Minority Leader Joseph Stephen Paduano. The 3 House leaders said that the gravity and unprecedented nature of the situation, the geographic propensity of the country to natural calamities, and the need to prevent similar situations from occurring is enough to merit an investigation. The lawmakers also wanted to find out the circumstances that led to the rapid inflow of water into the reservoir, as well as the possible non-compliance with laws, rules, or regulations that may have contributed to the swelling of Cagayan River. They also wanted the House to look into the decision of the National Irrigation Administration to open the spillway gates of Magat Dam and if such a move was done following established guidelines and protocols. To recall, Typhoon Ulysses exited the Philippine area of responsibility on the morning of November 13 after it battered parts of Metro Manila, Bicol Region, Central Luzon, Cordillera Administrative Region, and Calabarzon, causing power failures and massive flooding in areas along its pathway. Tribune News on Q will be back after these reminders.
Fiber is the free and secure way to connect with friends and family, anywhere. Send messages and make phone and video calls for free. Download Fiber now.
Magsha-shopping na lang ako!
Hashtag 143SM. Call to deliver.
Hello, can I get the following? One pink chair, bed sheets, na pink yung sofa, tapos slide, size 8, pajamas na blue. Oh, don't forget my...
Hashtag 143SM. Call to deliver.
Wait lang, okay ba yan?
Anything at the SM store, ma'am.
Call to deliver. Call.
Kuya, pwede rin ba ako magpa-deliver sa ate ko sa Taguig, tapos sa friend ko sa Davao, tsaka sa... Fiancé ko sa Lipa? Okay ba yan?
Kahit saan po, pwede kami
Call
mag-deliver.
to deliver. Call. Hashtag 143SM. Call to deliver. Hashtag 143SM. Call to deliver. Call. Hashtag 143SM. Hashtag 143SM. Call to deliver.
Call na rin kayo.
Call to deliver.
This is a very important story. The important story.
Pictures and stories.
Today, we feel the weight of history on our shoulders. The way we have been moving leads nowhere. We need to change course.
Since the United Nations was founded, the human race has never had to face a set of challenges like we do right now. But together, we can overcome them.
The Department of Health reported 1,738 confirmed coronavirus disease cases on Monday to bring the total number of infected in the country to 409,574, even as 9 laboratories failed to submit data on time. The 5 areas with the highest number of new cases were Davao City with 140, Cavite with 117, Rizal with 89, Laguna with 87, and Batangas with 79. The number of recoveries, on the other hand, rose to 374,366 after 45 patients recovered from the deadly disease. The death toll is now at 7,839 following 7 fatalities recorded. The remaining 27,369 are active cases undergoing treatment or quarantine, 83% of which are mild, 8.5% are asymptomatic, 3% are severe, and 5.3% are in critical condition. The Health Department earlier said that the string of typhoons that recently lashed the country has not affected the turnaround time of COVID-19 test results. Since the start of the pandemic, 54.4 million people have been infected by the COVID-19 virus, according to the Johns Hopkins University Coronavirus Dashboard. Of those, 1.3 million have died and almost 35 million have recovered. In other news, the Department of Education announced on Monday that it would fund the replacement of self-learning modules that were damaged after a series of typhoons battered large parts of Luzon in recent weeks. In a statement, Education Undersecretary Annalyn Sevilla said the DepEd was collating reports on damaged learning resources and has identified funding sources for the replacement of the materials. She added that the DepEd would continue to provide funds to affected regional and schools divisions offices for their cleanups, psychosocial aid programs, and provision of hygiene kits. Typhoon Ulysses brought strong winds and torrential rains as it crossed Luzon last week, knocking down power lines, inundating large swaths of Luzon and forcing hundreds of thousands to flee their homes. At least 67 people have died from the onslaught of Ulysses, which comes more than a week after Rolly, the world's strongest storm this year, ravaged the country. The DepEd has suspended distance learning activities in several areas that were heavily affected by the storms. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque on Monday stressed that President Rodrigo Duterte's fellow leaders in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations had understood why Duterte has skipped the last day of the ASEAN summit. The palace official explained that Duterte had to skip the final part of the summit as he went to Tuguegarao to see the extent of the damage caused by Typhoon Ulysses, which devastated cities in Luzon. He added that the president had informed ASEAN leaders of his early exit from the summit, and they understood since Duterte was needed for the government's response in the wake of Typhoon Ulysses. To recall, the president was chastised when he skipped the first high-level briefings on Rolly and Ulysses, which critics said caught his administration off guard due to unprecedented flooding which submerged the Bicol region, Metro Manila, and northern provinces like Cagayan. Duterte was in his hometown in Davao City when Rolly pounded Bicol, and he spent unrest there and he visited his parents' graves. The president also denied that local government units were not prepared during the recent typhoons. We'll pause for a short break. Stay with us.
Bilang bagong mag-asawa, sabay kami natututo sa buhay.
Sabay rin namin inaaral ng mga bayarin sa bahay.
Kahit kami, nagtaka sa biglang laki ng electricity bill namin. Huwag pong mangambang maputulan. Sinisigurado ng Meralco na walang disconnection hanggang September.
Estimated bills lang ang natanggap natin ng March, April at para sa ilan, May. Dahil sa lockdown, isang tabi to para hindi na maguluhan.
Ang May o June ay actual meter reading na. Kung May nagka-actual reading, ibabawas dito ang huling reading bago mag-ECQ. Yan lang po ang ating babayaran hanggang 3 buwang konsumo.
Kung estimated reading sa May at June nagka-actual reading, ibabawas din dito ang huling reading bago mag-ECQ. Yan lang po ang ating babayaran. Hanggang 4 na buwang konsumo, walang labis. Tandaan, kung ano lang na konsumo,
Yun lang ang babayaran.
ako po si Mateo G.
At ako naman po si Sarah G.
G?
G!
In business, Philippine share prices fell for the third consecutive trading session on Monday as the continued increase in global COVID-19 cases weighed on the economic outlook. The main bellwether index lost 51.83 points or 0.74% to 6,918.05 at the closing bell. The broader all shares fell by 10.18 points or 0.25% to 4,073.37. Regina Capital Development Corporation head of sales Luis Limningan said that Philippine shares slumped on fears that rising coronavirus infections may slow the recovery in the global economy and fuel demand. RG Markets analyst Kyle Roda, on the other hand, said that there are just mountains of cash sitting on the sidelines waiting to be put to work, and since there are positive vaccine news as well as diminished risk around the U.S. elections, all of those flew into equities. The World Health Organization chief last week also said it hoped to have a coronavirus disease vaccine by year-end, and Pfizer's experimental remedy is promising, but may prove to be challenging given storage issues. More than 2.363 billion shares valued at 8.767 billion pesos change hands. Advancers led decliners 119 to 109, and 30 issues were unchanged. And the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas announced on Monday that remittances posted an increase in September after a drop in the previous month, albeit still not enough to offset losses earlier in the year. The BSP said that cash remittances or money transfers coursed through banks grew 9.3% to $2.601 billion in September, from $2.379 billion the same month in 2019 and $2.483 billion in August. Meanwhile, personal remittances, or the sum of transfers in cash or in kind, rose 9.1% to $2.888 billion from $2.648 billion the previous year and $2.756 billion in August. Year-to-date, cash remittances were down 1.4% to $21.886 billion from $22.187 billion, while personal remittances fell 1.4% to $24.302 billion from $24.643 billion. Cash remittances for the 9-month period came mainly from the United States, Singapore, Qatar, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, which accounted for 78.8% of the total for the period. Meanwhile, declines were reported in Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Germany, Kuwait, and the United Kingdom. That wraps up these stories tonight. Catch the latest news on our website, tribune.net.ph, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Tribune Now. The Daily Tribune is one with the nation in facing the COVID-19 crisis, and in line with this, the Daily Tribune Digital Edition and Press Reader is now available for free online. You can also download the Daily Tribune app on Apple Store or Google Play to get the latest and most comprehensive news online. Daily Tribune is also inviting everyone to join its community Viber Katribu to get updates on the freshest and hottest news and entertainment stories of the day. Carcito emoticons are also available on our community Viber. Just visit the sticker store on Viber and search for Katribu. And before we go, we would like to thank the SM Store for my shirt and jacket this evening. Again, this is Elmer Navarro Manuel, and you're watching Tribune News on Q. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay at home. Good night, and God bless us all.
Araneta City, home to the country's first indoor shopping mall, the world's original Thrilla, and the first ever Bini Bini pageant. Now a place for your first win, your first catch, your first home, your first big break, your first date, and even your first love. Araneta City, the city of firsts.
Ang Philippine Offshore Gaming Operators o POGO ay isang legitimate business entity na nagbibigay serbisyo sa offshore gaming para lamang sa mga manlalarong nasa abroad sa pamamagitan ng internet. Ang mga serbisyong handog nito ay katulad ng casino games at sports betting na pwedeng laruin kahit wala sa casino. Sa Pilipinas, walang POGO operators. Tanging POGO service providers lamang dahil nagaganap ang mga laro sa labas ng bansa.
Good morning, sir. How may I help you?
Bakit kailangan ko pang pumunta sa bangko?
Oo nga naman, sir. Ba't kailangan pang pumunta sa bangko?
Why not get a UB app so you can do all these without going to the bank? Bank the way you live. Union Bank.
Click, that's it. Never thought self-service can be this slick. Modify plans in a snap, walang hirap, it's a wrap. Just tap the app. Now you can check, view, subscribe, renew. Help and support for you. Out with the ring apps are the in thing. You know what to do. Globe at home and Globe One, all in the Globe app na yan. Self-service and easy to use. Mas okay tayo dyan. Globe at home and Globe One, all in the Globe app na yan. Instant response, no hold time pa, wala nang hintayan. Download Globe at Home and Globe One app, all in the Globe app na yan. Download the Globe One and Globe at Home apps from Google Play Store and Apple App Store now. Download Globe at Home and Globe One app, all in the Globe app na yan.